My name is Selena Mora, 32 years old. It was supposed to be a simple send-off. Lasagna, a grocery store cake, the cousins pretending they still liked each other, while my mother orchestrated smiles from the head of the table like a conductor who judged by volume, not melody. A week from now, my little brother Daniel would leave for college, and Mom wanted one last family dinner, which in our family usually meant a performance with applause cues. Everything was a little too bright. My mother laughed too easily. My father kept complimenting our house like it was the first time he'd seen the crown molding. "You two really made this place shine," he said 3 different ways, hands in his pockets as if he'd built it with them. Daniel avoided my eyes, scrolling under the table, and every time I tried to catch him, he slipped away, a goldfish darting when a hand hits the glass. We've been married 5 years, my husband and I. We don't buy new phones every year. We don't do Europe every summer. We kept a floor safe in the bedroom closet under a cut of carpet. Fireproof, heavy, not clever, so much as quiet. We'd fed it for years. Freelance checks, tax refunds, every raise we earned rolling straight into stacks you could hold and call a plan. We called it option money, a rental property someday, a tired house we'd sand and paint back into something someone would dream in. It was ugly money, unglamorous, smelling faintly of ATMs and rubber bands. It was ours. 3 years ago, I told my mother about the safe by accident, the way you tell someone you trust where you hid the spare key because you still believe they'd only use it in an emergency. She'd asked, "Where do you even put it? Banks make me nervous." I said something flippant like, "Don't worry, it's bolted." She laughed and changed the subject. The next week, she texted me a pinboard of paint colors for "when you two finally flip." The dinner wound down. People hugged in 2s and 3s and slipped their shoes back on like leaving was an apology. When the door shut after the last cousin, the house sank into that blissful aftersound, plates in the dishwasher, distant hum, the gentle exhaustion of having survived. I carried wine glasses to the sink, stacked forks, pressed a palm flat to the countertop to feel it steady under me. Upstairs, the closet door was a whisper open. I don't leave it that way. I felt it before I saw it, the kind of wrong your body knows in the absence of noise. I knelt, peeled back the rectangle of carpet, and touched the safe's dial. The code moved under my fingers like muscle memory. I lifted the lid. Gone. Not a stray envelope, not a forgotten receipt, not even the rubber band we used to keep 5s from 50s. All that ugly, careful money. Option, future, oxygen, empty metal, and the smell of nothing. I didn't scream. I didn't even breathe. I forgot how. I stayed there, crouched over a hole that echoed until the floorboard behind me gave its polite protest, and I remembered this house wasn't haunted. It was occupied. My parents stepped into the doorway like they'd timed it. My mother smiled the way people smile when they give a gift and are pleased with themselves for their generosity. My father had the bored patience of a man who thinks he's already argued both sides and won. "We took it for Daniel's tuition," Mom said, palms open, voice warm, like she was offering cake. "Don't make this ugly," Dad added, the way some men say good evening. It took me a second to find words shaped like mine. "You did what?" "His aid package didn't cover everything," Mom said. "We couldn't bear to see his future ruined over money when you were just sitting on it." She tilted her head toward the closet like I'd sprung a party trick. "That wasn't yours to touch," I said. The sentence felt like a small flat stone in a big mouth of water. Dad shrugged. "You have more than enough. Families make sacrifices." "When will you pay it back?" I asked. "We won't," he said. "It's for family." Mom's voice softened, the performance pivot I knew too well. "Selena, if you raise your voice, or if we end this on a sour note, I could have one of my episodes. Please let's not." Her hand fluttered here, near her chest, the way it does when she wants you to be responsible for her pulse. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't do anything at all. I watched them leave my bedroom like it was theirs to exit and listened to the stairs tick under their measured weight. Downstairs, a plate clinked in the sink. I could have called to my husband. I didn't. Shame is a quiet animal. It tells you to hush until the sun comes up. I sat in a chair by the window and felt the hours pass and the shifting of the neighborhood, porch lights going out, a car door thudding, the kind of dog bark that says the world is fine. I replayed every overtime shift, every "not tonight, let's save," every raised glass where we toasted a future we were patiently building with our hands. Around 3, my phone buzzed. A spam email about refinancing. I laughed. not because it was funny, but because my body needed to make a sound. At 6:30, my husband padded in, rubbing his eyes, hair pointing in 6 directions that made him look like a boy. "You didn't come to bed," he said, then saw my face. "What happened?" I told him. Not the performance, not the mother's hands, just the fact. The safe was empty, my parents were the thieves, and they were calling it love. He thought I was joking until he saw my mouth refuse to curve. He went very still. "We're going over there right now," he said, already reaching for his keys. "No," I said, and surprised us both. "Not yet." He stared. "Not yet?" "I want them to fix it the right way," I said, hearing in my own voice the person I've been becoming for years and hadn't named. "I want a record of asking. Then I want a record of what happens when they say no." An hour later, showered and dressed like people who handle things, we sat on my parents' couch. Mom brought coffee she didn't intend us to drink. Dad stood, arms folded, because sitting would have made him too human. I asked them to return what they had taken. Dad chuckled. "You're being dramatic." Mom said, "Maybe this is a sign you don't need it as badly as you thought." She set the coffee down with a little clink that made me want to throw the cup. "Let's not escalate." "Return the money," I said, "all of it." "Please leave," Dad said, as if we'd brought a sales pitch into their living room. Back in our car, my husband gripped the wheel so tightly his knuckles whitened. He didn't speak. I didn't need him to. We had already arrived where words don't help. What they didn't know, and maybe this is the quietest gift anger ever gave me, is that I had started moving before we ever went over. At 9:12 a.m., while the sun warmed the thin frost on our lawn, I called Natalie. We went to college together. We survived group projects and bad boyfriends and landlord wars. Natalie grew up to become a lawyer who writes in clean lines and cuts with them, too. I didn't cry on the phone. I handed her the facts. "Do you have records?" she asked, already pulling up a document on her end. I could hear the clack of keys. "Anything proving definitively the money is yours?" "I have everything." I had spent my sleepless night making sure of it. I spread the photos on our dining table, stacks of bills, with dates sharpied on Post-its, the spreadsheet where I tracked deposits like breath, PDFs of ATM receipts for 4 years. The old text where Mom asked where we kept the cash because banks make me anxious. And I, idiot, daughter, optimist, told her we kept it safe at home. I screenshotted, I exported, I named files like I was building a case for a stranger who needed me to be precise. Natalie's voice, when she saw the folders flood our shared drive, warmed a degree. "You're within your rights to press charges and sue," she said. "We'll begin with a 48-hour demand. Civil and criminal exposure, clearly outlined, delivered to their door and their inbox. If they return the full amount, we pause. If not, we escalate." "Escalate how?" my husband asked from across the table, his jaw wired shut by fury he didn't want to spend on shouting. "Strategically," Natalie said. "Think beyond a family scuffle. If they use those funds to pay any third party, say a school, we make that entity aware the payment is in dispute. Institutions prefer clean money. They will freeze before they fight." Her keyboard resumed its decisive cadence. "Selena, do you recall your mom ever asking about reversing a payment? Hypothetically." I blinked. She once asked how chargebacks work. Said, "What happens if a payment has to be undone?" I didn't think about it. Natalie hummed, the way she does when she's dog-eared a page. "Any names floating around? Consultants, counselors?" "There was a time she mentioned someone who helps with aid paperwork," I said, flipping back through memory like a catalog. "Initials maybe AM? I'm not certain." The letters felt like a splinter I couldn't place. A. Mercer. It was there and gone, like a fish flash underwater. "Forward anything you find," Natalie said. "For now, watch your phone. They'll test your boundaries. Don't negotiate on the porch. Make them answer paper." By late afternoon, the courier had knocked on my parents' door and left the letter in my mother's manicured hand. Short, legal, and unambiguous. Return the full amount within 48 hours, or face civil and criminal action. They didn't call that night. They didn't text apologies or explanations or even the kind of rage my father prefers. The house was quiet, and in the quiet my husband and I chewed our dinner thoughtfully, like the food could answer what to do with people who rebrand theft as love. "What if they never bring it back?" he said. "Then we let consequences do what we couldn't," I said. I poured tea. My hands didn't shake this time. I lay in bed later and stared at the ceiling until the corners of the room softened. We'd always imagined the safe as a promise, the ugly money that would one day turn into something beautiful. Now it was a mirror, and in it I could see us clearer than I ever had, two people who would stop lighting themselves on fire to keep other people warm. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, an email notification from Natalie, subject line in all caps, "Demand delivered, clock running." I tapped it open and reread her last line 3 times. "If they chose to steal your future, they also chose the rules you'll use to take it back." I set the phone down and finally closed my eyes. The next move would be theirs. By morning, the letter had been in their inbox for 12 hours and on their kitchen counter for 10. I imagined it sitting there beside the fruit bowl someone kept stocking for appearances, oranges bright as warning lights no one heeded. My phone was a still pond, no ripples. Natalie texted at 8:03 a.m. Confirm receipt from courier plus read receipt email. 36 hours remaining. I made coffee. Evan stood at the sink, letting the water run too long, staring through the window like the glass might answer him. "We should go over there again," he said. "One more ask." I shook my head. They heard me. They understood. They chose. "Then what do we do today?" He looked so ready to fight and so afraid of what fighting might cost. "We live our life," I said, "and we let Natalie do what paper does better than we do." At lunch, we did the civil ask anyway because I needed the record Natalie had mentioned, the page where I had politely asked and had been refused. My parents received us like door-to-door salespeople. Mom had a cardigan tied loosely over her shoulders. Dad didn't bother to sit. "I'd like our money returned," I said, the way you read from a script when improvisation is too expensive. Dad's mouth bent into a smile that had no teeth in it. "You're being dramatic." "Maybe this is a sign," Mom chimed in, "that you don't need it as badly as you imagined." She touched the mantle as if it steadied her. "You've always been so careful. Maybe it's time to trust." Evan laughed, one short sound, with the laughter stripped out of it. "Trust? You robbed our home." "Enough," Dad said, an old command he still thought worked. "Leave. You're upsetting your mother." We left. I didn't slam their door because I wanted the air in that house to have to carry what they'd done without assistance. Back home, Natalie's second message was waiting. Notice sent to the university's bursar plus general counsel, tuition payment in legal dispute, funds potentially misappropriated, expect freeze. There was no drama in her words, only the certainty of a lever meeting the right fulcrum. At 6:11 p.m., an unknown number rang. I let it go to voicemail, watched the transcription paint itself across my screen. University Financial Services, calling to verify the origin of a recent tuition payment on behalf of Daniel Mora. We've received notice this payment may be subject to dispute. I called back. The woman's voice was careful, the way people talk when their job is to keep flames from becoming structure fire. "We are conducting a review," she said. "Until this is resolved, we're placing a temporary hold on enrollment, housing, and schedule. If the funds are returned to the originating account, we can clear the hold quickly. Otherwise, we'll escalate to our legal office for guidance." "Return to originating account," I repeated. "That's ours." "That's our understanding," she said, and I could hear the deeply human apology she wasn't allowed to offer. At 7:02 p.m., my phone erupted. "Mom first. Do you really hate your brother this much?" "Dad next. You've made your point. Stop this insanity." Daniel last. "WF, did you do? I'm locked out of my portal. Fix this now." I set the phone face down. Evan watched me, waiting for the part of me that always answered to wake up. It didn't. By morning, Natalie forwarded a response from my father to her demand letter. It read like a confession cramped into denial, punctuation bleeding, words bumping into each other. He called it a family misunderstanding. He suggested a plan to pay slowly over time. He offered nothing concrete. He apologized to no one. Natalie's reply was 3 sentences and 1 deadline sharpened to a point: full repayment within 24 hours or we escalate. They cracked at 4:15 p.m. My mother texted a grainy photo from a waiting room under a wall seal the university likes to stamp on its stationery. She and my father sat slumped, eyes red, Mom gripping a tissue like a verdict. "We're at the registrar's office. We're fixing it. Please no more," she wrote, as if my hand were on her shoulder holding her down, instead of finally letting gravity do what it does to everyone. An hour later, Natalie called. "The school's legal team reached out," she said. Your parents admitted to them that the payment came from funds they did not have the right to use. The school will reverse it if you sign a hold harmless acknowledging the institution isn't at fault." She paused. "It's standard. It protects you too, makes the chain of return clean." She sent the document. I read every line so carefully my eyes ached. I signed. The confirmation email landed at 6:09 p.m. Reversal initiated. Full amount to post within 48 hours. A second note followed. Enrollment canceled, pending new payment. Housing on hold. At 6:12, Daniel called. Evan looked at me. I shook my head. The call died into voicemail. His text came instead. "You ruined everything. You happy now?" I typed, "I didn't ruin anything. I just stopped paying for your version of it and deleted it." I typed, "Talked to Dad and deleted that too." I put the phone in a drawer and shut it. We ate dinner at the table where we had counted money and called it hope. Evan pushed peas around his plate like a man trying to find words in Morse code. Finally, he said, "When the money comes back, do you want to press charges?" The question sat between us like a third-place setting. I had expected victory to be a feeling. It wasn't. It was a room with the air changed. "I don't know yet," I said. "I only know they crossed a line I didn't draw for them because I didn't think they'd ever go that far." He nodded slowly, as if agreeing with something he hadn't heard yet. "We don't have to decide tonight," he said, "but we don't have to pretend returning stolen things is the same as making it right." 2 days later, the deposit hit our account with a sterile little ping and an email that said, "Funds available." Like a store opening in a mall you don't shop at anymore. I waited for relief to arrive and take off its coat. It didn't. The money looked like our money, but it felt handled, like a jacket someone else had worn, too warm and oddly scented to love again the same way. No apology came with it, no call, no message that used the words "we stole," or "we are sorry," or even "we were wrong." Their silence was so complete it had weight. They thought it was over. I could feel it, the way you sense someone waiting for music to start again after the band takes 5. They wanted ordinary back. Ordinary is cheap if you're the one who didn't pay for it. The knock on our door came an hour after the deposit cleared. Evan looked through the peephole. "Your mother," he said, and his mouth went into a line he saves for medicine he swallows anyway. We opened the door to the full production. Daniel on the walkway, jaw tight. Mom halfway down the drive doing a sob that had perfected itself in mirrors. Dad just behind her, stunned, as if consequences were an unfamiliar weather pattern. Daniel launched into volume immediately. "Do you understand what you've done? I'm going to lose my dorm, my spot, my life, over money." Evan stepped into the doorframe, a quiet boarder. "Over theft," he said. "Say the word." "Family," Mom wailed, moving her hand in that little circle she uses to summon pity. "This is breaking our family." I stood in the hallway where they could see me and said nothing. I watched Daniel's face, trying to find the boy in there, the one who used to ask me to check his homework because my approval mattered. He kept yelling without looking at me. When his voice finally cracked, he pointed at me, as if pointing could push me backward. "Fix it," he said. "You fix everything." "I did," I said quietly. "I fixed the part where our money wasn't in our safe." Mom pressed her palm to her chest. "If you push this further, I'll have one of my episodes. Please, Selena, please." Dad's eyes slid away. He still hadn't figured out how to stand in a world where what he wanted didn't just become policy. We didn't let them in. Eventually they left, the way people leave a courtroom when the verdict isn't theirs to reverse. That night, Natalie emailed. University confirmation attached. Reversal processed. Enrollment canceled. Also attaching our complaint template should you choose to pursue criminal charges. We can file as early as Monday. She added one more line. Question for you tomorrow. Do we stop at theft or do we widen scope? The word widen made something cold feather through my ribs. I thought of the stray letters I'd half remembered. A. Mercer, like a hint in a crossword I hadn't solved yet. I carried my tea to the window and watched the neighbor's porch light blink on. Somewhere on the street, a dog barked twice and went quiet. Evan came up behind me and set his chin on my shoulder. "We're okay," he said, not as a promise, but as an inventory item. "We are," I said, and placed my hand over his. I didn't know what we'd choose on Monday. I only knew I was done mistaking the return of stolen things for repentance. I had learned to live on facts this week. The facts were on the table. The clock kept moving. And for the first time, I felt no urgency to run after people who had walked away with my future and called it a family favor. When I finally slept, the dream wasn't of safes or signatures. It was of a house with windows open and nothing in it I had to hide. By Monday morning, Natalie's email hit my inbox before sunrise. Subject line, "We need to talk now." I'd barely taken a sip of coffee before Evan appeared in the doorway, tie half nodded, worry half hidden. "That's from her?" I nodded. "She wants to meet in person." He sighed. "That's either really good or really bad." "Or both," I said. Natalie arrived with a folder so thick it looked like it might bite. She didn't waste time on small talk. She never does. Her hair was pulled back tight, her lipstick the color of courtrooms and closure. "I ran a background check," she said, sliding the folder across the table. "Not on your parents, on their money." I frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means I called in a favor from a friend in forensic accounting. I wanted to make sure they hadn't moved anything off the books before the funds were returned." She opened the folder. The first page was a summary sheet, dozens of line items highlighted in neon yellow. One stood out like a siren. $10,000. Wire transfer to Alan Mercer. "Who's that?" Evan asked. "Not a family friend," Natalie said. "Not a tutor, not a college official. Mercer runs what he calls an educational consultancy." She made air quotes sharp enough to cut. "But he's currently under federal investigation for creating falsified financial hardship documents, manipulating loan applications, and laundering parental contributions through fake nonprofit accounts." My stomach dropped. "So they didn't just steal from us?" "No," she said softly. "They hired a criminal to hide it." The room went quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the click of my brain piecing it together. Mom asking about chargebacks. Dad's too easy talk about a guy who knows people at the university. The letter they never responded to until they were cornered. Natalie flipped to another page, an email chain between my parents and Mercer, dated months before the tuition bill even came due. The subject line read, "Funding Strategy, Daniel M." I skimmed the messages. The words were so casual it made me nauseous. "We found a workaround for his aid eligibility," Mercer wrote. "As long as the funds come from a family source, no red flags. We'll make it look need-based. Just get me the deposit." They hadn't acted in panic. They'd been planning. Evan leaned back in his chair, jaw tight. "You think Daniel knew?" Natalie shrugged. "Maybe not, but your parents did. And the trail's clean. The tuition, the transfer, the email, every breadcrumb points to intent." "What happens now?" I asked. "Now," she said, "we widen the scope." She looked directly at me. "I'm filing a criminal complaint. Theft was the start. This is fraud. And given Mercer's investigation, possibly conspiracy." My throat went dry. "They'll be charged?" "Yes," she said, "unless you stop me." I thought about my parents' faces, the way my mother smiled when she lied, the way my father's silence always sounded like approval. I thought about Daniel, locked out of his classes, sending angry texts he probably half believed. "Do it," I said. Evan nodded beside me, all of it. That afternoon, Natalie filed the paperwork. By sunset, it was out of our hands. When the first knock came at our door 2 days later, I expected an officer or a courier. It was my parents. Mom clutched a manila folder like it could save her. Dad's eyes looked hollow, the arrogance burned out of him by something larger than shame. I didn't invite them in, but Evan did, because he believes even monsters deserve a final word. They sat on the couch like strangers auditioning for the role of family. Mom opened the folder. "We're selling the house," she said quickly, voice trembling. "We'll cash out everything, savings, retirement, the cars. We can pay you back, all of it. Just, please, don't press charges." Dad nodded stiffly. "We made a mistake." "A mistake?" Evan repeated. "You stole from your daughter, laundered it through a fraud ring, and tried to pass it off as tuition. That's not a mistake, that's a plan." Mom flinched. "We only wanted to help Daniel." "With what?" I snapped. "Learning how to get away with it?" She started crying. The dramatic kind, all gasps and shaking shoulders. "We thought you'd understand. You have so much, and he's just starting out." "You thought wrong," I said. Dad stared at the floor. "When you grow up, Selena, you'll see. Family sometimes does ugly things for love." "I'm grown," I said. "And what you did wasn't love. It was theft dressed up as sacrifice." They didn't argue. When they left, Mom touched my arm like muscle memory. I didn't move. She dropped her hand and walked out. Shoulders small for the first time in my life. 2 days later, Daniel showed up. No entourage this time. No shouting. Just a backpack slung over one shoulder and eyes that looked bruised by insomnia. "I need to tell you something," he said quietly. Evan stepped forward. We're not I stopped him. Let him talk. Daniel stepped inside, but he didn't sit. I didn't know about the safe, he said. Not until a few days ago. They told me the money came from an old account Grandma left. I swear I didn't know. I wanted to believe him. I waited. He swallowed hard. After everything blew up, I went through Dad's office. He wasn't answering my calls, and I had to know what was going on. I found his old email login. He reached into his backpack and pulled out a small silver USB drive. I copied everything, he said. Emails, PDFs, bank screenshots. There's more than you think. What's on it? Evan asked. Proof, Daniel said, that Dad's been stealing longer than any of us realized. I took the drive and stared at it like it might burn through my hand. Daniel kept talking, voice shaking. He lost their retirement last year, gambled it on some stock scheme. Mom doesn't know. He started moving money months before he took yours. He thought he could rebuild it before anyone noticed. Jesus, Evan muttered. Daniel nodded. It's all there, and it's not just you he took from. Grandpa's will. He pulled my inheritance early. It's gone. The words hit like a slow punch. He robbed me too, Daniel said. I just didn't know it yet. Natalie came over that night. She plugged the USB into her laptop, scanned the folders, and went completely still. Your brother wasn't exaggerating, she said finally. This is a pattern. Hidden accounts, false transfers, misreported taxes. This isn't just theft. It's deliberate financial deception. It's systemic. She closed the laptop and looked up at me. They're finished. By Thursday, 2 detectives showed up at our door. They asked questions, took copies, thanked us for our cooperation. By Friday, my parents were served with a formal court summons, civil and criminal, theft and fraud. That night, my phone lit up with a message from Dad. If you go through with this, you'll lose your family forever. I typed back, you already lost me, and hit send. The next morning, there was another knock at the door. This time, when I opened it, both of them were standing there again. No folder, no tears left. My mom's voice cracked on the first word. Please. My dad's on the second. Stop. I didn't say anything. I just let them see what it looked like when the child they'd underestimated finally became the adult who didn't need their approval. Behind me, Evan stood like a wall that didn't move. Mom dropped to her knees on our living room floor. We never meant to hurt you, she sobbed. We just wanted to protect the family. I helped her up, slowly, gently. You should leave, I said. There's nothing left to protect. They left without arguing. And when the door closed, I realized the strangest thing. I wasn't shaking anymore. For the first time since this started, I felt steady. Because the truth was finally bigger than their excuses. The detectives left just after sunset. Their questions had been polite, but clinical, the kind that scrape right down to the bone. They didn't ask if I wanted to press charges. They asked how soon I could provide more documentation. The implication was clear. It wasn't if my parents were guilty anymore. It was how deep it went. Evan closed the door behind them and leaned against it, rubbing the bridge of his nose. They're going to lose everything, he said quietly. They already did, I said. He studied me for a long moment, maybe searching for guilt in my face. But I felt nothing. No relief, no triumph, just a hollow, steady calm. The next day, Daniel texted, They're not talking to me either. It took me a minute to decide whether to reply. I finally wrote, That's not your fault. His answer came fast, I know, but it still feels like it is. I almost told him that's what it always feels like to be the one who finally stops enabling the damage, to be the first to choose truth over tradition. But I didn't. Some lessons you can't teach. 2 days later, Natalie called. The DA's office wants to interview you, she said. Your brother, too. The drive he provided connected to Mercer's accounts. It's part of a larger fraud web, 12 families in total. 12, I said. 12, she repeated, and your father's name is the one that keeps showing up first. The room spun for a moment. I sat down hard on the kitchen chair. So this wasn't even just about us. No, she said. He's been helping Mercer hide money for years. Every fake hardship document Mercer filed went through one of your father's accounts. That's why the investigators are moving fast. They think he was the point of entry. Meaning, Evan asked. Meaning, Natalie said grimly. If they can prove he knew Mercer's methods, it's federal, not state. By Friday, the local news caught wind of the story. They didn't use names, but everyone in our town could connect the dots. Local legal consultant under investigation for financial misconduct, the anchor said, her voice steady and polite as she talked about my father like he was a stranger. Mom called that night. I didn't answer. Her voicemail was long, 8 minutes of frantic half apologies, her words spilling over each other. You have to understand, Selena, he didn't mean for it to go this far. We were drowning. I thought it would fix itself. When I finished listening, I deleted it without saving. I wasn't angry anymore. Anger had edges. This was smoother, like stone, polished by waves of disappointment until it no longer cut. Then came the family fallout. The same aunts and cousins who had smiled at my parents' parties, who'd spent years calling them the perfect couple, started whispering. Jordan told me my father's volunteer position at the city council had been paused. My mom's book club disbanded. Tyler, my brother who used to brag about our family's good name, changed his social media handles and deleted half his photos. People love proximity to success. They flee proximity to scandal. I didn't celebrate it, but I didn't mourn it either. 3 weeks later, there was another knock at the door. This time it was Daniel. He looked even thinner, dark circles smudging the skin beneath his eyes. "Can I come in?" he asked. I nodded, stepping aside. Evan followed us quietly to the living room. Daniel didn't sit. He just stood there, twisting his hands, eyes darting toward the window as if expecting our parents to appear behind him. "I wanted to say thank you," he said finally. "For what?" "For not letting them ruin you," he said. "For making it stop." I blinked, startled. "You don't blame me?" He shook his head. "I did, at first. But then I started thinking, if you hadn't stopped them, they would have kept going. With me, with anyone." He took a breath that sounded like the first one he'd had in days. "They called me last night," he said. "They asked me to talk to you, to convince you to withdraw the charges. I told them no." The weight of those 2 words hit harder than I expected. "No?" Evan repeated. Daniel nodded. "I told them they needed to face it, for once." Later, after he left, Evan found me standing at the window, watching his car disappear down the street. "You think you'll be okay?" he asked. "Maybe," I said. "He's young enough to start over." "And us?" I turned, leaning into him. "We already did." 2 days later, a letter came from my parents' lawyer. It wasn't handwritten. It wasn't heartfelt. It was cold, typed, and titled Notice of Intent to Negotiate Restitution. Natalie read it and laughed. "They're trying to barter," she said. "Too late. The state's already picked it up." That weekend, I cleaned out the closet where the safe used to be. The floor still had faint scratches from where the metal had pressed into it for years. I ran my hand over them, tracing the grooves, the ghosts of every dollar that had sat there, waiting for a future we thought we could control. Then I closed the carpet flap and nailed it down. Evan leaned against the doorframe, watching me. "You're really sealing it up?" I nodded. "No more hidden places, no more secrets." He smiled faintly. "We'll keep our money where we can see it." "And our boundaries," I said. By mid-October, the DA officially filed charges. The state versus Raymond and Linda Mora. The words looked unreal on the document, like a headline in someone else's tragedy. I read it twice, then folded it and placed it in the envelope marked, "In case I forget." Not as revenge, as record. Because forgetting is how it all started. That night, Natalie called again. Her tone was lighter. "Just wanted to let you know they're cooperating now. The plea negotiations are underway. Mercer's going down for sure." "What about them?" I asked. "They'll probably avoid prison," she admitted. "Probation, fines, community service. But their reputations," she exhaled, "gone." "Good," I said. "That's all I ever wanted. The truth out loud." Natalie hesitated. "Selena, be ready for the backlash. People will say you destroyed your family." "They destroyed it," I said. "I just stopped pretending it was still standing." Weeks passed. The trial date loomed, then shifted, then disappeared as deals were struck. Life began to quiet. And then one afternoon, as leaves blew across the driveway, Evan found me sitting on the porch steps. "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, watching the wind scatter them. "I was just thinking." "About what?" "How many times I called what they did normal. How many times I thought silence meant peace." He sat beside me. "It's not silence anymore," he said. "It's space." I smiled. "There's a difference." That night, I sat at my desk and wrote one final line on a sticky note. Then I stuck it to the front of the envelope inside the filing cabinet. "Paid in full, lessons included." And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like a victim of my family. I felt like the author of the ending they never thought I'd write. 6 months later, the trial was over. Or what passed for a trial when guilt became paperwork and promises. The charges never reached the courtroom. My parents signed a plea deal, probation, fines, public apology, community service. The words financial misconduct were printed beside their names in the local paper. A quiet scandal, sanitized for public consumption. But the damage wasn't quiet at all. The first Sunday after the plea, I went to the grocery store and felt eyes on me. Not hostile, just curious. People who'd known me since grade school smiled too tightly, as if kindness might be contagious. The cashier asked, "How's your family holding up?" And I realized she didn't mean Evan and me. She meant the other one, the one I had finally stopped belonging to. I just said, "We're fine." Fine was easier than free. A week later, I did something I'd been putting off since the first letter arrived. I wrote my parents one last time. "Mom, Dad, you once told me that family means forgiveness. I used to think that was true. But forgiveness isn't the same as forgetting, and it isn't the same as pretending. I'm not angry anymore, but I'm done carrying the weight you refuse to feel. I hope you find peace, but you won't find it here. Selena." I printed it, folded it once, and dropped it in the mail with no return address. They never wrote back. Daniel called a few weeks later. "I think they're scared of you," he said. "I'm not dangerous," I told him. He hesitated. "You are to people who built their lives on never being held accountable." There was something like admiration in his voice, maybe even envy. He told me he'd moved out, got a small apartment near campus, started a part-time job. He was rebuilding. Quietly. Slowly. "Do you hate them?" he asked. "I don't know," I said. "I think I've just outgrown the version of love they taught us." "Same," he said softly. We didn't talk much after that, but sometimes silence feels like progress. Around Thanksgiving, I got the inevitable text from Mom. "Dinner at our house, family only. Please come home." I stared at it for a long time. "Are you going?" Evan asked. I shook my head. "They haven't been home for me in a long time." He nodded. "Then let's start our own tradition." We spent that Thanksgiving in the mountains, just the two of us. He cooked over a campfire and I burned the bread. We laughed until we cried. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And it was ours. Winter brought the final consequence. My parents sold the house, the one they'd called the family anchor. They downsized to a small rental outside the city. My mother's friends stopped calling. My father started avoiding public events. Jordan told me that at the last family gathering, someone asked about me. Mom said quietly, "She's chosen her path." "She's chosen honesty," Jordan replied. "That's not a path, that's daylight." He told me Mom didn't answer. Sometimes when I lie awake at night, I wonder if there's a universe where they told the truth first, where they came to me before they stole, before they lied. Maybe I would have helped. Maybe things could have been different. But then I remember the night they stood in my doorway, uninvited, unrepentant, asking me to be small again so they wouldn't have to feel guilt. And I know, no universe would have changed them. Because some people aren't waiting to be forgiven. They're waiting to see if you'll cave. And this time I didn't. In March, the university sent a letter addressed to Ms. Selena Mora and family. I opened it out of habit and found a single line. "The disputed tuition funds have been fully restored to your account. We appreciate your cooperation and transparency throughout the review process." Below that, a signature from the legal department. It was the most official way the world had ever told me I was right. I placed the letter in the same filing cabinet as everything else, behind tax records, next to the envelope marked "Paid in Full." Then I taped one more note to the front. You can't rebuild trust on silence. The following summer, Evan and I bought the fixer-upper we'd dreamed about before all of this began. It wasn't big, and it needed everything. New floors, new wiring, new life. He handed me a hammer and said, "First swing's yours." I took it, aimed at the cracked plaster, and felt something shift inside me when the wall gave way. Dust flew everywhere, catching in the sunlight. It sparkled. "Looks like freedom," Evan said, half smiling. "Looks like peace," I said. People still ask about my parents sometimes. I tell them the truth now, not angrily, not dramatically, just plainly. They made their choices, I say, and I made mine. No one ever knows how to respond to that, but I do. I go home, to the house I built with walls that don't hide secrets and locks no one else has the key to. And when I open that filing cabinet once in a while to add something new, I smile at the label that's now fading on the envelope inside. Paid in full, lessons included. Because I didn't just get my money back, I got myself back.